They walked into nature and were never seen again. No struggle, no screams, just silence. From the towering peaks of Yosemite to the deep forests of the Smokies, people keep vanishing, and no one can explain why. Search teams find nothing, no footprints, no clues, just one question. How can someone disappear without a trace in places meant to be explored? These are the most chilling disappearances in America's national parks. He parked his car, laced up his boots, and set off on what was supposed to be a peaceful hike through Zion National Park. The air was crisp. The trails were quiet. And then, nothing. Eric Robinson simply vanished. No calls for help, no signs of struggle. Just the haunting silence of the Utah wilderness. Eric was 63 years old when he disappeared. A devoted husband, a father, an avid hiker. He wasn't reckless or inexperienced. Quite the opposite. He respected nature. He loved the solitude of the trails. That day in September 2015, he was staying at a lodge just outside Zion. He told a friend he was heading into the park alone. It wasn't unusual for him to hike solo, but he always kept in touch. This time, he didn't come back. When Eric failed to return to his lodge, the alarm was raised quickly. His car was found at the Hop Valley Trailhead, a less traveled area on the Kolob Plateau in the northern part of the park. A beautiful stretch of land, but also remote, rugged, unforgiving. Rangers initiated a search almost immediately, but the deeper they looked, the stranger things began to feel. There was no trace of Eric on the trails, no boot prints, no dropped gear, no torn clothing. Days turned into weeks, and the trail stayed cold. Search crews covered nearly 20 square miles, some of it thick forest, some of it high desert, and yet not a single confirmed clue ever surfaced. For those familiar with search and rescue operations, that kind of total absence is rare. Even in challenging terrain, people leave behind something, a footprint, a water bottle, a sign of distress. But in Eric's case, it was as though the land had simply swallowed him whole. What made the situation more perplexing was Eric's preparation. He was said to be in good health. He had water with him. He wasn't venturing into unfamiliar territory. And the weather that day? Clear skies, mild temperatures. Conditions were ideal. So how does a man disappear without a trace? Some believe he may have suffered a medical emergency, collapsed off trail, and was simply never found. It's a plausible theory, but it raises more questions than it answers. How could trained dogs and aerial surveillance miss a stationary person, especially within the initial critical hours? Others have speculated that Eric may have left intentionally, but those closest to him reject that entirely. He had no history of mental health issues, no personal troubles weighing him down. His life was full. He had plans, and importantly, he had a family he was deeply connected to. Disappearing voluntarily just doesn't align with who he was. Then there's the terrain itself, beautiful but treacherous. Zion is carved from layers of sandstone cliffs and deep slot canyons. It's a place where disorientation can happen quickly. A wrong step can lead to a deadly fall, and visibility is often limited. Over time, the search for Eric Robinson slowed. The official investigation listed him as missing and presumed deceased, but the word presumed never sat well with his loved ones. It still doesn't. It's not just the lack of answers, it's the lack of anything. Even the park rangers, who've seen their fair share of lost hikers, have quietly acknowledged that Eric's disappearance remains one of the most unusual they've encountered. Stories like Eric's stir something in all of us. The idea that someone could simply vanish in daylight in a well-traveled national park shakes our sense of control. We like to believe that if we follow the rules, stay on the path, prepare well, we'll be safe. But sometimes, even the safest paths hold secrets. And Zion is full of them. Since the 1920s, more than 24 people have vanished within its boundaries. Most are eventually found, either rescued or recovered. But a few, like Eric, remain missing. Forever part of the landscape, woven into the silence of the cliffs and the whispers of the canyon wind. When you visit Zion today, you can still stand at the Hop Valley Trailhead, the same ground where Eric parked his car that day, the same trail that swallowed his footsteps. And as you look out over the vast, open beauty of the plateau, it's hard not to feel the weight of what's missing. Not just a man, but a story with no ending. His case remains open, technically, but after nearly a decade, time has dulled the urgency. What remains is a quiet ache, a wound that never really closes, for his family, for those who searched, and for anyone who has ever stepped into the wild and wondered, what if it doesn't let you back out? Eric Robinson didn't just disappear. He left behind a mystery, one that lives in the silence between the trees, in the empty spaces where answers should be, and in the hearts of those still waiting for closure. Somewhere out there, the land holds the truth. We just haven't found it yet. She was strong, smart, independent, the kind of person you'd want beside you on a trail. But on New Year's Day in 2008, Meredith Emerson went hiking and never came home. What began as a peaceful solo walk turned into a chilling mystery that would stretch across multiple states and shake the very idea of safety in the wild. Meredith was just 24 years old. A recent graduate of the University of Georgia, she was full of life, passionate about animals, devoted to her friends, the kind of person who greeted strangers with kindness but trusted her instincts. On that cold January morning, she and her dog, Ella, set out to hike Blood Mountain, part of the Appalachian Trail in northern Georgia. It was a familiar spot for her, a challenging but rewarding trail. She left her car at the trailhead. She brought her gear. She didn't tell anyone she wouldn't be back. As the sun dipped below the trees and darkness crept in, concern began to spread. Meredith hadn't checked in. Calls went unanswered. Her car was still parked where she'd left it. But there was no sign of her on the trail. What followed was an extensive search, not just a casual sweep of the area, but a deeply coordinated effort to find any sign of where Meredith might have gone. Hikers came forward. Some remembered seeing her, walking confidently with Ella, but no one recalled anything alarming. Nothing unusual. She had simply vanished. Investigators soon discovered something chilling. Meredith wasn't the first woman to go missing in a state or national park under strangely similar circumstances. Other cases, scattered across states like North Carolina and Florida, shared patterns. Women hiking alone, vanishing without a trace. Some later found, others never. Then came a break. A witness reported seeing an older man on the trail that day, one who didn't seem like he belonged. Disheveled. Watching. He hadn't approached anyone, but his presence had left an impression. Authorities followed the lead. They traced transactions, they studied travel patterns, and soon a name surfaced: Gary Michael Hilton. Hilton was a drifter, a man with a long history of wandering through forests and trails across the Southeast. He blended in with hikers, knew the land, lived off it, and slowly a horrifying truth began to emerge. Meredith had crossed paths with him on the trail that day. Whether by chance or by design, he had approached her. What exactly unfolded in the woods will never be fully known, but we do know this. Meredith fought back. She resisted. She delayed him. She bought time. Days, in fact. Time that would later prove crucial. Her dog, Ella, was found alive several days later, wandering in a parking lot, clean, cared for. That detail would linger in the minds of investigators and the public alike. Whoever had taken Meredith had spared her dog. Eventually, Hilton was arrested. He confessed to kidnapping Meredith, to holding her captive in the forest. To what happened next? The details, though available in public records, are best left unwritten here. What matters is that Meredith never gave up. She stalled, she misled, she tried to survive. And in doing so, she helped authorities connect the dots not just in her own case, but in others. Hilton was charged, convicted, and later tied to multiple disappearances and murders across state and national parks, including one in Florida and another in North Carolina. Places meant for reflection and peace had been used as hunting grounds. The case shattered assumptions. Meredith had done everything right. She was prepared. She was fit. She was aware. And yet, it wasn't enough. Her story became a rallying cry, not just for better trail safety, but for recognizing the rare but real dangers that exist, even in places we consider safe. Years later, hikers still pause at Blood Mountain. They remember her. Flowers are sometimes left at the trailhead. Hikers bring dogs, walk in pairs. Some carry whistles now or tell loved ones where they're going, small habits that trace back to Meredith. But perhaps the most enduring legacy is her courage, the way she fought, not only for herself, but unknowingly for others. Her resistance, her determination, it slowed her attacker. It gave investigators time to close in, and in the end, it helped bring a killer to justice. There are still questions. about how many other victims might remain unnamed, about how someone like Hilton evaded suspicion for so long, about how many near misses may have occurred, women who sensed something was off and turned back just in time. Meredith Emerson's case is not just about loss, it's about awareness, preparedness, and the sobering reminder that the wilderness, while beautiful, is also unpredictable. She went into the woods with her best friend by her side and never imagined she wouldn't return. But even in her final moments, Meredith showed remarkable strength. Her story lives on, not in fear, but in resolve. A reminder to cherish the freedom of the trail while never taking it for granted. Because sometimes, even the safest paths hide something darker just out of sight. Karen Sykes knew the mountains better than most. A seasoned outdoorswoman, writer, and trail expert, she had spent years exploring and documenting the wild beauty of Washington state. If anyone knew how to navigate the unforgiving terrain of Mount Rainier National Park, it was her. But in June 2014, Karen set out for what was meant to be a routine day hike and didn't come back. She was 70 years old, but strong, capable, and deeply familiar with the trails she loved. That day, she was hiking near the Owai Lakes Trail with a friend. At one point, she told him she wanted to continue farther on her own. It wasn't unusual. Karen often hiked solo and was well-equipped. But as the hours passed and she didn't return, worry quickly turned to alarm. A deep search was conducted. The terrain in that part of the park is steep and densely forested, with unpredictable weather and rugged slopes. Still, Karen had navigated more difficult routes in the past. Those who knew her were stunned. It didn't make sense. Days later, her body was discovered off-trail, in a remote area not far from where she was last seen. The official cause of death was hypothermia. Investigators concluded that she may have become disoriented, lost the trail, and succumbed to exposure overnight. But even with an answer, the story still feels unfinished. Karen wasn't just another visitor. She was a trusted voice in the hiking community. Her writing inspired countless people to explore safely and respectfully. That someone like her, so experienced, so knowledgeable, could meet such an end was deeply sobering. It reminded people that nature, no matter how familiar, always demands respect, and that even those who know the trails best can find themselves at the mercy of a sudden turn in weather, a misstep, or simply fate. Karen's passing left a quiet void in the hiking world. Her trail reports, once regular and reassuring, came to a stop. Her readers, her loved ones, and the places she cherished so deeply all felt her absence. To this day, her legacy endures in the words she left behind and the wild places she loved to roam. But her story is also a reminder, one that echoes in the trees and the cold mountain air, that even the most seasoned among us are not immune to the silence of the wild. Matthew Weaver Jr. was 21 years old when he disappeared, but it wasn't just his age that made his case unsettling. It was how quickly he seemed to vanish, and the strange trail he left behind. In August 2018, Matthew told friends he was going to explore the mountains near Malibu, California, close to the Santa Monica Mountains and near the borders of Joshua Tree National Park. He posted a photo from the area that morning. After that, there was silence. The last known signal from his phone came around 11 a.m. It pinged from somewhere deep in the wilderness. No calls, no texts, just a single post, and then nothing. His car was discovered parked near a fire road, remote but accessible. What searchers would later find in the area raised more questions than answers. Some of Matthew's belongings were located near a steep canyon: his hat, his torn shirt, and one shoe. A deep search was conducted across the terrain, but the landscape was vast, dry, and difficult. There was no sign of Matthew himself. As the days passed, theories grew. Some believed he had gotten lost and suffered an accident in the rugged terrain, but others noticed something more troubling. Days after he vanished, a cryptic message appeared from a Snapchat account believed to be his. It read simply, "Help." Was it real? Was it a delayed message sent earlier that had somehow just gone through? Or had someone else accessed his account? To this day, there are no confirmed answers. His family never gave up. They organized searches, passed out flyers, and pushed for more attention to his case. What troubled them most was the strange trail of partial clues. Items found, a car parked neatly, and that last eerie message. The Joshua Tree area is massive, harsh, and eerily silent in some places. It's a place where nature speaks in whispers, and where people sometimes disappear without a sound. Matthew Weaver's story remains unresolved. No confirmed sightings, no recovered remains, only a few scattered clues in a desert that holds its secrets tightly. He walked into the wilderness full of life and left behind a silence that still hasn't been broken. Someone, somewhere, knows more. Until then, all we have are questions, and the desert's quiet refusal to answer them. David Barclay Miller was 45 years old when he set out alone into the vast expanse of Grand Canyon National Park. It was June 1996, a time of year when the canyon blazes with heat, silence, and beauty. David was no stranger to adventure. He was experienced, careful, and deeply thoughtful. But once he stepped onto that trail, he was never seen again. He had traveled from Virginia to Arizona to explore the north rim of the canyon. It was a solo hiking trip, something he'd done before. He checked in, left his rental car in the designated area, and told park staff where he planned to go. But when he failed to return, concern quickly spread. His car remained untouched. His gear, what was known of it, was not recovered. A deep search followed. The area he had planned to hike was combed for days, then weeks. But the Grand Canyon is vast, over 1 million acres of cliffs, side canyons, and unforgiving desert terrain. No trace of David was ever found. Not a shoe, not a water bottle, not a signal, nothing. Disappearing in the Grand Canyon is not impossible, but it's rare for someone to leave behind no clues at all, and David was known to be responsible. Theories emerged. Did he fall? Was there a medical emergency? Could he have taken a wrong turn off one of the lesser-marked paths? All possible. But with no evidence, each answer seemed to fade into the next question. His case became one of the canyon's most enduring mysteries, the kind that haunts rangers, hikers, and families alike. A reminder that nature, no matter how carefully you enter it, offers no guarantees. Over the years, the park has seen dozens of disappearances. Some resolved, some not, but few are as complete and final as David's. It's as though the canyon chose to keep him. Today, hikers still pass through the same region where David was last believed to be. They carry more technology now, phones, GPS trackers, digital maps. But even in this modern age, people still vanish here. The silence remains just as deep. David Barclay Miller walked into one of the most breathtaking places on Earth and became part of its mystery. And in that canyon silence, his story still echoes, waiting to be heard. She was just 14 years old, bright, adventurous, and full of life. On a sunny July afternoon in 1981, Stacy Ann Arras saddled up for a guided horseback ride through Yosemite National Park with her father and a small group of visitors. The ride was meant to be scenic, relaxing. Instead, it ended in one of the most haunting disappearances in the park's history. The group made their way up to the High Sierra Camp near Sunrise Meadow, an elevation of nearly 9,400 feet. After arriving, Stacy told the guide she wanted to explore the area and take some photos. She wasn't alone. An older man from the group accompanied her a short distance down the trail. At some point, he sat to rest while Stacy continued on her own. Just a little farther. And then she was gone. When she didn't return, concern quickly turned to fear. A deep search was launched. The area around Sunrise Meadow was scoured for days. Stacy was known to be wearing hiking boots, a camera, and had only wandered a short distance from the camp. The terrain wasn't especially dangerous. Visibility was decent, and yet no trace of her was ever found. No clothing, no equipment, not even the camera she was said to be carrying. What makes Stacy's case so unsettling isn't just her age, it's the sheer lack of evidence. It's rare for someone to vanish in broad daylight with others nearby and leave behind no clue. Some have questioned whether all information was made public. Over the years, fragments of speculation have circulated, none confirmed, none proven. Yosemite is no stranger to disappearances. But Stacy's case struck a nerve that still lingers more than 4 decades later. She wasn't deep in the wilderness. She wasn't reckless. She was simply a teenager, enjoying a once-in-a-lifetime trip with her father. The mystery remains unsolved, and the silence around it, both literal and official, has only added to its weight. Today, hikers still pass through the meadows where Stacy was last seen. The landscape looks unchanged, peaceful. But to those who know her story, that stillness carries a different meaning. Stacy Ann Arras didn't fall off a cliff. She didn't run away. She vanished, quietly, quickly, and without a trace. And all these years later, we're still asking how and why. He left his car at the trailhead and stepped into the woods, just like he'd done many times before. The trail ahead was familiar, the weather mild. But that day, Robert Owens would walk into the Great Smoky Mountains and never come back. It was March 2021 when Robert, 58 years old, was last seen. A quiet, private man from Blount County, Tennessee, he enjoyed the solitude of the mountains. The Smokies had always called to people like him, those who seek peace in the quiet of the forest, who find clarity among the trees. But this time, something went wrong. Robert had told family he was heading into the park, but didn't mention exactly where. His car was eventually located along a remote stretch near the Tennessee-North Carolina border. It was parked neatly. Nothing looked disturbed. But Robert wasn't there. A deep search was conducted, on foot, by land, and through the dense stretches of the national park's wildest terrain. But the days passed, and there were no clues, no signs of distress, no dropped gear, no trail leading forward or backward. The Great Smoky Mountains are beautiful, but they're also vast and unpredictable. The weather shifts quickly, visibility can vanish in moments, and the terrain, steep, thick, and often unforgiving. People do get lost, but even then, anything, is usually found. Not this time. Robert's disappearance raised difficult questions. He was not inexperienced. He hadn't ventured off in stormy conditions. He didn't have known health issues. And there were no signs that he intended to walk away from his life. His family waited for answers. They were told everything possible had been done, that the area was searched as thoroughly as conditions allowed. But when someone you love disappears, words like enough or thorough can feel painfully hollow. As time passed, the case faded from headlines. No new leads emerged. Robert was eventually declared missing and presumed deceased. But for those who knew him, and for others who walk those same trails, his absence still echoes through the trees. There's something uniquely unsettling about a person vanishing in a national park. These are spaces meant for reflection, not tragedy. Yet, Robert Owens joins a growing list of people who walked into nature and were never seen again. We don't know what happened that day. But what we do know is this: Robert mattered. His story matters. And somewhere in the vast silence of the Smokies, so does the truth.